Good morning, gang. Happy Friday morning. So I got a question for you. Do you know what yesterday was? It was a pretty important day in history. We don't recognize it whatsoever. Yesterday was the 79th anniversary of VE Day. 79th anniversary of destroying Hitler, okay? Taking down the Nazi regime. That we finally won, had victory in Europe. Not us, not the United States, okay? The Allies. The U.S., the British, the French, the Russians, okay? Yeah, believe it or not, they failed to tell you in the U.S. history books, the Russians actually took Berlin, not the United States. They were there first, okay? We kind of forget about that. That doesn't fit the narrative of our indoctrination centers, otherwise known as schools in the United States. If you actually go watch, the History Channel, you might get more of a little education on history than you would in any high school in the country. But so yesterday was the anniversary of VE Day, and if you didn't know that, there's no way you would have known it. There were no celebrations, no news mentions of it, no reports from any of the memorials in Washington, D.C. to World War II vets or anything like that. No, we just ignore it. But speaking of Washington, D.C., they were more concerned about supporting current Nazi regimes, i.e. Ukraine. They were more concerned about supporting organizations that are trying to kill Jews, i.e. Hamas, okay? Completely forgetting what this country, what many countries, fought against 79 years ago. It's despicable to me that the way our government treats our veterans, our military, our holidays. VE Day should be a holiday. It's a hell of a lot more important day in American history or in world history than Juneteenth is, okay? But that's a federal holiday, and VE Day is a forgotten day, period, okay? You look at what's going on, and this is kind of going off in a different topic, but I want to discuss this. Discussing the idiocy of what goes on in Washington. Not even acknowledging VE Day would be a good one. On Wednesday, there was a vote in Congress. It passed 206 to 202. All the Republicans voted for this bill, even the rhinos. All the Democrats voted against it. It was a pretty simple bill. It was in the census where they count everybody. Remember, Trump tried to have that one beaten, that we only counted American citizens, that there would be a box on there to check whether you were an American citizen or whether you were a foreign national, okay? And a foreign national could be green card holder, work visa holder, illegal, whatever. But the bill was intended to determine that electoral votes and congressional representation, okay, because remember, the Senate doesn't matter, every state gets two, okay? Congressional representation would only be based on those people who were American citizens. Like I said, all the Republicans voted for it, all the Democrats voted against it. So the Democrats want congressional representation and electoral votes determined by the total amount of people in a state, not just the total amount of citizens in a state. Now, their argument, of course, is, Well, the people who live here deserve representation too. They have it, depending on where they're from, in their home country. If they are an H-1B from India, for example, they have legal political representation in their home country of India, even though they're currently living in the United States. It's no different than a U.S. soldier being stationed on the border at the DMZ in Korea. They don't have any representation by the Korean government. They have representation by the U.S. government because they are U.S. citizens. Why the Democrats want to do this differently, again, goes into the great replacement theory. Now, I want to give you this as a fact, and maybe somebody will wake up from this. You see all the stories in Chicago primarily, where the black community is up in arms because of all the money that the city of Chicago is spending to provide for all these illegals. And it's basically being taken from the coffers that would help the black community, right? Okay. And the people are rightfully so upset. You know, their cost of everything, rent, food, taxes, et cetera, is going up at the citizens. The foreign nationals, the illegals, don't have to worry about paying for the rent, the food, the taxes at the prices they're at now, because that's being given to them by the government. So the black community is being severely hurt. And there was information coming out yesterday that Biden is going into Chicago for a fundraiser, political rally, whatever you want to call it. Okay. And the black community is raising hell saying, we don't want you here, which ought to be really fun come summertime when the Democrat National Convention is in Chicago. And I wonder if we'll see 1968 all over again. I want you to understand something. You hear the comments all the time. Most of the time, the numbers used disparagingly, that the black population of the United States is 13% of the country, right? And they are a heavily Democrat voting bloc, though Joe's losing that quickly. It's not just Chicago. As of now, we have in this country, of the 333 million people that live here, 51.4 million of them are foreign nationals or illegals. That's 15.4%. To the black community, I would like to point this out to you. You are now a minority to the foreign nationals in this country. And the Democrats want to give foreign nationals representation in federal government. They want to completely rule you out. They want you to vote for them, and I've said this a million times. The Democrats will promise the world to the black community on the last Monday or the first Monday of November. On the first Wednesday of November, they are completely forgotten. Okay. You look at what's going on. Georgia just signed some significant voting rules, okay, to prevent all this cheating, which is good. There's about 1/3 of the states in the country that require voter ID, Tennessee being one of them. I told you the story about when I lived up in Massachusetts and went to the polling place. It was Mitt Romney against Barack Obama. I was the very first person in line. Okay? I was there half an hour before the polls opened. They opened the door. I was the first one. Here's this woman with this binder of names. What's your name? I told her my name. She looked up my name in there, put a check mark next to my box, and said, go on there. Didn't ask for ID, no confirmation, no Social Security, no nothing. I could have said I was Tom Brady. And if that name was on the voting rolls, she would have checked the box and sent me off. Okay. That's the problem. Now, voter ID should be required. You know where most people with common sense stand. I fall into the people with common sense category. Therefore, you know where I stand. South Carolina had an interesting one the last couple of days, where apparently their Department of Health and Human Services is providing voter registration forms to illegals so they can vote. Congressmen in South Carolina have now let HHS in South Carolina know they are opening an investigation on what's going on. We see these happening in red states. Yes, I will still consider Georgia a red state because Biden did not win Georgia. We see this happening in South Carolina. Why don't we see this happening in blue states? It's pretty simple. Congress told us yesterday. Congress wants to count foreign nationals, illegals, whatever, in the census. Let's think about why. In the 2020 census, California lost a couple of seats. I believe New York lost a seat. Minnesota should, but they screwed up the census. But there were all the seats that were lost, I think except for one, were in blue states, and all the states that gained seats were red. Okay? The Democrats know they are losing representation. I mean, Tennessee gained a seat. That's why I'm now in the 3rd congressional district where I used to be in the 2nd. We added a seat. We added an electoral vote because people moved here. Not a big surprise. We are one of the lowest tax states in the country. I'm not talking about just income tax. I'm talking about sales tax, property tax, excise tax, et cetera, et cetera. We have between Alaska's the lowest, Tennessee's 2nd, and Florida's 3rd for the lowest taxes in the country. Okay, state and local. Well, they know, the Democrats know that if they just count citizenship, they're going to lose electoral votes. They're going to lose seats in Congress. If we import a bunch of people to California and count all of them, California will get a whole lot more representation in Congress. California will get a whole lot more electoral votes. So yeah, let's see. That means we'd get a whole lot more Nancy Pelosi's, Maxine Waters, Adam Schiff's, Kevin McCarthy's, these are the people they want to put in Congress. This is something that people really need to be made aware of, on how the census works, how your state is going to handle the votes this year. Because your vote, my vote, is getting diluted. Doesn't mean as much. Because the Democrats want to count people that have no love of this country, have no loyalty to this country, won't do anything for this country. The only thing they are here for is to collect a paycheck. That's it. Okay? Don't tell me that all the guys who are here on H-1Bs, all the illegals that are coming here are doing it for anything other than economic reasons. They aren't. And I can tell you that 100% factual because I worked with H-1Bs for years. And they all wanted to come here, get the money, and go home with it. Okay? You need to make sure your elected officials stand behind the "we only count U.S. citizens." Or at least you can count whatever you want, but at least we only recognize U.S. citizens for congressional representation and for electoral votes. If somebody wants to move here, i.e. like Mrs. P, okay, and become a naturalized citizen, I'm all for that, okay? But you gotta do it. You don't just get the rights to be an American citizen, to call yourself an American citizen, all the benefits to be an American citizen, just because you show up one day. It doesn't work that way. Unfortunately for us, even though there is a test in the naturalization process to speak English, unfortunately, we are too lax on who we let into our country. Way too lax. Okay. And all of us wind up paying for it. Not only economically, but we are paying for it with our rights. Because now when you give all these people who come over from other countries who are poor and say, what do you think we should do? The first thing they're going to think about is themselves and go, well, I think you need to give me money. Well, the poor will always vote for the people with more money to give them money. Okay? They're never going to vote to, I don't want to say keep them down because nothing keeps them down other than themselves, but the shortest distance between two lines, hey, if you give me money, I'll make it, right? No. Get some skills, learn, go through the process correctly, become a naturalized citizen, and then your voice matters. Until then, the only place your voice matters is in China, is in Mexico, is in India, is wherever the hell you came from. Because that's where you're a citizen from, and that's where your vote should be counted if your country votes. Until you are an American citizen, no. Sorry, but this land is my land. From California to the New York Islands, right? Pinball out.